I knew that when I would wake up and be shaking in the morning, you know, from not having enough alcohol in my system and having to go to work, I was like, this is a problem. I mean, I knew it was a problem from the beginning, but I'm just saying, like, when things started to fall apart was when I was like, fuck. My name's Kendall and I'm from Poway. My parents got divorced really young. I remember my mom having a boyfriend whom I called stepdad, although they were never married. He was very verbally abusive, physically abusive. So I remember like being scared a lot when I was younger, like always anxious and really like uncomfortable in my skin. My mom used to like weigh me and make me like exercise before I went to middle school. So that was like being a girl, like a young girl, that's really like took a toll on me for like the way that I hold myself and view myself. I lived with him till I was about 14. My mom had planned this like escape that we did when he was at work. She had gotten an apartment and she took me and my brother and we left and never went back. And I was probably, I think my brother was 18 and we're 6 years apart. So when I was younger, I feel like I didn't really get a chance to develop any dreams or aspirations for myself because I started drugs so young. I didn't really get a chance to like experience what it is that I could have potentially done, but I do remember I did have a dream job, you know, when I was 19 and I worked for the school district and I worked with mentally disabled kids. So that's what I did do when I was younger. That probably would have been like my goal, like going to school and like digging deeper in that field. I think so, yeah. My cousin is, I grew up with my cousin who is mentally challenged and I've just always felt the need to protect her and help her and just be with her. So I think that carried on into, it just makes me happy. I can't really describe it. So my first experience with drugs, where I knew it instantly was going to be a problem, was when I was 16 and I was with my brother and we were going to go visit my grandpa who was in the hospital. We both knew like it was going to be tough to look at him like that. You know, my brother pulls out a meth pipe and I'm 16, I've only smoked weed at this point. So I tried it, he taught me how to do it. In the car, right in the car before we went to go see my grandpa, and it made everything better. And I knew right then I was like, fuck. And I feel like I was already having a problem before that, like maybe with drinking or weed, and I was just starting to dabble, but then, you know, that's like a huge jump, you know, weed and then crystal meth. And then I remember we went to go in and see my grandpa, which I vaguely remember because I was so high. I remember calling my mom and saying like, hey, can I stay the night at my brother's house because I was so high, you know? And I think that she let me, I can't remember, but he also gave me a Xanax later that day so I can come down. And that was gonna be a problem too because I was like, oh my God, this is amazing, you know? So that started that's what started it at 16. It was a one and done for a little while simply because I didn't know where to find it and I wasn't gonna ask my friends like, hey, do you know where to get some meth? Because at that time they were doing like dabbling with coke or, you know, and I knew I had a problem because I did it alone. I didn't do it with my friends, they didn't know for a long time. And it was just something, so I didn't know where to get it. And I think as I got older and I met more people, and then it became a problem, like 18, 19 is when it was like a daily thing. When I started working for the school district, one of the teachers, she had pulled out a line one day, not in the classroom, but before work, whatever, and that's when it started up again. And so from that point on is when it came everyday use, and I was 19, and that's when I had that dream job that I, always wanted to do. And when I did meth, it was always an upper and a downer. It was never just meth. My thing was meth and Xanax. And if I couldn't find Xanax, it was alcohol. But it got to the point where I couldn't find Xanax, you know, and so I would drink daily before, you know, work, in the middle of work, during work, after work, and I eventually lost that job. I think the fact that I, you know, held a job for as long as I did, multiple jobs at that time, I felt, I knew it was a problem, but I was like, okay, I can, like, I can do this, you know? Like, this is life. I knew that when I would wake up and be shaking in the morning, you know, from not having enough alcohol in my system and having to go to work, I was like, this is a problem. The meth, probably not so much, because it wasn't until later on in my life that, I mean, I knew it was a problem from the beginning, but I'm just saying, like, when things started to fall apart was when I was like, fuck. Sometimes I would, well, of course it was social. I mean, everyone who I hung out with was a tweaker or did some, you know, drug in some form. But I would also go the extra mile and smoke by myself, so I didn't, you know, because for the longest time, even when I smoked weed, like, I like getting high by myself. I'm not very social, I'm antisocial, and I think that it started way early in my life because of the choices and the people that I chose to hang out with. They weren't socially acceptable, so I would rather do it alone. Okay, after I got out of the first treatment, I found out that I was pregnant, and I thought that, okay, I was 21 at this point, and I was like, okay, this is what's gonna get me clean and sober. See, my story sounds weird because I'm remembering that I actually was still working when I took a leave of absence or something for that week, and I came back. I remember because I started, you know, having a miscarriage while I was at work, and I left, and I went to the hospital and found out that I was miscarrying. But I had been clean for that week, but, you know, prior to that I was using, so the damage was already done. So that happened. I believe I lost my job somewhere soon after that, and then that's when I just didn't give a shit anymore. I was like, you have a fucking problem, Kendall. Like, you do, but I can't stop it. You know, once that happened, my mom soon after kicked me out, and so I think that her pushing me away and loving me at a distance was her way of, like, protecting herself, because I didn't want help, and I wasn't one of those ones that came around my family when I was using. I would stay away for long periods of time. So they didn't really know how bad it was, because I never let on to how bad it was. I went through a couple of traumatic things. Seeing one of my friends, you know, get hit by a train, and, like, we were just doing stupid shit, and so they were playing, like, who can get closest to the train, and mind you, drugs were involved, alcohol was involved. And it was that train in Del Mar, the coaster, the blue one that's still there. They were seeing who can get closer to the train, and he didn't realize how close he got, and in between those sections of the train, there's, like, a little space that creates suction when it's going fast. So anyways, he couldn't stop in time, and he got sucked up, and it all happened so fast. But I just remember seeing, you know, his arm, his leg, half of his leg come off, and then his arm get ripped off, and he was just laying there in the rocks. And at that point, I was in shock, and it took me a long time to even remember that much. I thought that was going to be enough. Like, I'm never going to do this again, and I did. But he lived. He lived, yeah. Wow. He lived. I continued to use drugs, get arrested several times for stupid shit, like petty theft and, you know, possession, and just hanging out with the wrong people. I am 24 at this point, 23, I'm sorry, at this point. I've already been to 5 detoxes and 4 programs, and I find out that I'm pregnant with my first son. then I'm like, okay, this is gonna change my life. I'm gonna get clean for my son. And that's what I thought would be my life-changing experience, but it wasn't. I remained clean. I was in PC 1000, which is like a drug court type thing that I had to complete for probation, and I did that throughout my whole pregnancy. I was clean my whole pregnancy, had my son. My son was about 1.5 years when I got bored and, you know, was like missing my old lifestyle or the feeling. I was missing something, you know. I was a single mom, and I think I just fell into depression. And all it took was like me to reach out to, you know, a few friends, old friends, and before I knew it, I was getting high upstairs in the closet while my son was sleeping, and then, you know, in the same room. I eventually moved out of my grandma's. Okay, so I was living at my aunt's house, but it was where I would just leave and then come back whenever I wanted. It wasn't like, you know, no rules. She's like my mom, my aunt is. So she's not dumb. She knew what was going on, but she knew she couldn't do anything to help at that point. So I was on my way back to my aunt's because I was just tired. I was so fucking tired. I remember my son was in the back seat. I had gotten a hotel room for my sister that night. It was at a Motel 6, and I was calling her because she wasn't answering my phone, and I wanted to make sure she's okay. So I stopped by the hotel, and I was on probation, and the cops, I had gotten the hotel in my name, so the cops were there waiting for me because they seen that I was calling my sister, and they already had her in handcuffs. And so they pulled me over. No, they don't pull me over. They pull right in behind me when I park. And I remember that I had this bag of pills in my purse. And so I hide them really quick. And I'm like, okay, I should be fine, you know. And I had forgotten that I had this little tiny bit of heroin in my pocket that I don't even know. I didn't even mess with heroin, but I had it on me. And so the cops at that point, didn't have my rights. They did a fourth waiver search, and they found that, and I knew that they were going to take my son, and it was at that point when I thought, well, that was my rock bottom. One of them. I had several rock bottoms, but that one still hurts. They arrest me because that's possession. That's before like the laws change where possession's a misdemeanor now. That was, you'd actually go to jail for that, and I did. I remember them taking Jackson, and you know, he's a baby, and thank God he doesn't remember. But he went to Polinsky. I went to jail with my sister, and I was like, you know, this is definitely the worst. But you know what? Every time that you hit rock bottom, and if you're in the back of a cop car, instantly you just get so tired. You're just like, fuck, the worst thing that could have happened. So now I can just fucking sit in it. You know, you're not like necessarily running anymore or like hiding. It's like it all builds up for a letdown. You know what I mean? You just have to have been in that place, been running for so long and like numbing it for so long, and it's like just like fuck. Okay, now you have no choice but to come down because you have to, and everything's just been stripped from you. You have nothing. I went to jail. I bailed out. We both bailed out. After that, I knew I had to get my shit together, which I did for a little bit.
Did you get your son back?
Yes. I went to a program. I sobered up, got my shit together for, wait, hold on, let me think about this. I went to a program in Riverside, did everything that they wanted me to do. I had an open CPS case, of course. You know, had to jump through rings of fire, do everything that he wanted me to do. And I did it happily, you know, never relapsed once, you know, in the whole time that I had to test and whatnot. Went back to court. So that CPS case lasted for a little over a year, I want to say. So in that time, I had gotten clean, was getting to know Jackson's dad via, you know, letters. He was still in prison. So I get out of rehab, move back to my aunt's. I'm still clean. His dad gets out of prison and paroles to my aunt's house. And I just know him from the 2 weeks that we had hung out, and then through letters, right? So, but of course it was like, okay, this is my family. This is like who I'm going to be with forever. You know, this is my first child. It was like everything to me. And so he gets out of prison. That night I get pregnant with my second son, Brayson. Was still clean. He was, you know, got a job. I didn't get a job. I was just, you know, doing the program and things I needed to do to get my first son back. In the midst of having that CPS case, you know, I get pregnant again, which is not, I had no business doing, but I did. And so Jared, their dad, is, you know, taking care of us, got us, you know, like I said, got a job, was providing, got us out of my aunt's house into our own apartment. We got our first son back, and then went through that whole pregnancy with him. He was struggling with his demons, you know, and I knew something was up, but didn't find out to the very tail end of it. He was doing heroin while, you know, going to work and everything. I stayed clean with that whole pregnancy because, again, I had a CPS case, or I was, the first pregnancy, I was in a drug program, so it held me accountable, and thank God for that, because, you know, who knows. But had my second son, Brayson, brought him home from the hospital, had him there, had our happy family for 6 months, relapsed. Well, we started using meth together, and out of all the people that I've been around my whole life and seen, I've never seen meth take over somebody and turn them so evil in my whole life. It was night and day. It still blows my mind. He just turned, it's drug-induced schizophrenia, I believe, is what he had. I went through my little phase of, like, you know, poor me, fucking my life sucks, I can't believe this happened, and I just dove deep for, like, I don't know, 6 months before I did anything about it, I don't even want to say 6 months, probably a couple months before I knew I had to get my shit together again and fight for my kids, because that was never not an option. You know, it's just like I had to just get my head on right. So Jared ended up going back to prison for whatever the fuck it was this time. It's always for drugs or something. We parted ways. I ended up meeting somebody else in my addiction before I got clean again, and who would be my third son's father. So I was hanging out with Brandon. I ended up falling in love with him. Obviously, he helped me. I was in such a deep depression over Jared, but he helped me get out of it. You know, he treated me right, even though we were using together. He wasn't calling me all these names. He wasn't putting his hands on me. Never has. And so I think that it's so pathetic, but, like, that's what I was like, that this is love, right? Like, I'm not being abused, but I'm doing drugs with him. So it's not how it should be, but it's better than it was, you know, and he helped me get over that obsession I had with Jared. Like, I couldn't understand why things happened the way that they did, but they did. So I fast forward a little bit. I checked myself into a rehab and found out I was pregnant again with my third son. Brandon had gotten arrested. He went to jail. So while having this second CPS case, finding out I'm pregnant with a third one, and that never looks good when you're trying to get your kids back. Oh, let's just get pregnant with another one. Through the duration of the CPS case, I graduated the program, jumped through all the hoops, got my own apartment. So I went even further than the last time that I had gotten, my son back. I did even more and stayed cleaner for even a longer period of time. So I was like, okay, this time's different. I'm doing even more than what I did before, and I'm different people, different places, and I thought that was the life-changing experience that I was going to have, after everything else had already happened. I was like, okay, this is going to keep me clean. No dad. Both of the fathers were in prison. But, that didn't matter at that point. So I just threw myself into being mom, and, my dad would help. Thank God for my dad. And my aunt would help, the one who had my kids and who wanted, custody of them. But it lasted for about 18 months. So I had to make this sober group of friends that I never had, because all my other friends were getting high. So I think it was like once I got custody of my kids back and I was being a mom full time, I kind of detached myself from that sober group of friends. And then that's when I'm, I need to, I don't know, I just lost my support system. But knowingly though, I knew what I was doing and I still did it anyways. I know what to do at this point, I'm just not doing it. I know I need to surround myself with these sober people. I need to attend these meetings. I need to, work my steps, have a sponsor, because that's what's being told to me, and that's how to get my kids back. Ultimately, it all comes down to getting my kids back, because every time I'm in a program, I'm trying to get my kids back, and I'm always fighting. I'm never just like, okay. I start using again, and it's becoming obvious, because now I'm doing pills too, and so I'm, and my whole family knows what to look for. They know when I'm not looking well. They know when I'm not picking up the phone. Brandon had gotten out of jail somewhere in between this time, and he went to a program, and he knew I was doing bad, so he left the program and showed up at my doorstep. So there was a period of 5 months where we were just doing the most together. It was all bad. It wasn't verbally abusive bad. It was just we were just in our addiction bad. It wasn't long until the CPS phone calls started to happen from his mom and my aunt, who already knew, what to look for. So they showed up at my door, the CPS, just voluntary open case, can we do a drug test? I'm like, fuck. But I'd already practiced how to pop bottles, like a fake pee. And I thought okay, I know I need to get back into a program. I know what to do, but let me just get through this, drug test. I was just trying to cover it up. I did everything I could just to get a clean pee test, and it didn't work. And so the third CPS case opens, and at this point, I'm in the back of my head, I'm I know that I don't stand a chance. There's no way. And there wasn't. The judge, I sobered up again, went to Kiva, left everything behind, my apartment, didn't have my kids, left everything that I had worked so hard to get behind to check myself into an inpatient. I knew that I had to get clean, regardless.
You knew, but
I knew.
You were willing to do it.
Once everything is stripped from me, yeah, then I'm willing to do it. It's it's fucked that it comes down to that, but it's just the addiction, and it's just a sickness. It's like being in the back of the cop car, okay, now I have to do something about it. when I had every opportunity to fix it before it got that bad. Yeah, this time we go to court. I don't stand a chance. Their dad, I didn't communicate with him for a long time, but I didn't know this, but he was getting his shit together, and he had met a girl who had touched a drug in her life. She had a house, she had everything that he needed at that time. Anyways, long story short, the judge ends up saying, wow, look at Dad's record, but he has his shit together now. He has everything, seems stable. He has his girlfriend or his wife at the time, has her shit together. We're gonna give full custody to Dad, which in the long run, I'm glad that they did, because I would have lost my rights. We would have lost our rights, and they would have gone to my aunt, and that would have been a wrap. But they ended up going with Jared, and I started off with visitation, and but would never, after I completed the program, knew I wasn't going to get them, continued to do what I was doing for a little bit, knowing that I was, it's all said and done. There's no way I can go back to court and change this, but I still continue to see them on the weekends. When he decided to let me see him is when I got to see him. So he's, they just dangled him in front of me at times, and that drove me back to relapse and use again. So there was no kids to lose, and at that point I was like, okay, so what's the worst that could happen if I fuck around again? I go to jail. Of course that wasn't what I wanted to do, but that ended up happening. I got caught up with some people that I just made stupid choices. I just kept going further and further, started messing with fentanyl, and ended up going to jail for 3 months. And that's my most recent, that was last year. So during all of this, Jared, my kid's dad, ends up going back to prison because he ends up relapsing with his wife, who has his shit together, my kids are there, whatever. He ends up leaving that relationship because he's using. She kicks him out. Anyways, long story short, he goes back to prison. So he ends up getting busted. She has the kids by herself, and she's at this point, she has 2 of her own kids, one with him and one prior to that relationship, and then my 2. And so she's just like worn out. She's looking for any, handout she can get. And she needs my help. At this point, she needs my help. She's been taking care of my kids for these 6 years. I feel like I owe her everything, you know what I mean? And I trusted her with, my kids, trusted her, just put her up on the pedestal. I can't think of any other way to explain it. So I get out of the program. She invites me, you can stay with the kids and I as long as you're clean and sober. I said, okay, cool. I don't have any problem with that. I move in with her. I start, dive into being mom 24/7, which I wouldn't change that for the world. You know what I mean? She was out doing her thing. She ends up, meeting some guy. She's still married to Jared, but she ends up getting pregnant with some other guy's kid and leaving Jared and starting a whole nother family. So she's rarely there. I'm, there with the kids. In her house, yeah. So she's with her new boyfriend up in Riverside. Yeah, it's a good spot from what I can tell at this point, It's temporary, it's not gonna last forever, but it's like I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I'm with my kids again, I'm clean, I am where I need to be. So I'll be forever grateful for that, but at the end of the day, I left with my kids and we never went back there. So when I reflect back, it's very, I almost feel like it's not me who's telling the story, because I feel like out of body, I don't think I'll ever give myself as much credit as I deserve, because that's just I think human nature, just to not talk yourself up and just dumb it down. And especially for an addict, I think it's well, the fact that I had to go through all of that is fucking pathetic, and you don't really look so much at what you've overcome and the things that you did. You know, it's almost like you have to have somebody point it out for you in order to appreciate it or even recognize it sometimes. But yeah, I think that it's crazy that I'm still alive with the drugs that I was doing. I definitely should have overdosed at least once, and I didn't. Thank God. There's definitely been some things that happened where I'm like, if I didn't believe in God, then this would be the time that I would, but I do, and I always have, and He's gotten me through everything that I've been through in my life this far, and He's still, and it's getting better, it's getting better. I'm now living, my life has done a complete full circle. I'm now living back with Jared. Brandon's finishing up his term, gets he paroles to his mom's house in a couple weeks. I'm still with him. I've been together with him for 10 years. My goal is to be self-sufficient. You know, that's what I want, to be able to take care of my kids and have my own place, or whether it be with Brandon or by myself, I don't really care. I just want to not have to share any space with someone that I don't want to share space with. You know? How I try and stop the cycle is by being completely 100% honest with them when they ask me questions about drugs, about why I was in jail, about why I wasn't there every day from when they were younger. You know, I've had talks about them, or talks with them about this, explaining that I was sick, you know, that their dad, you know, struggles with the same demons I do. And I've even told them that they have the genes, you know, to become an addict just like I did. The only thing that I can do is just be honest with them and tell them what not to do. I'm still navigating through the relationship with their dad part of it, because I know that affects them. Even though we're not a couple, it takes two to make it. Like, I can't make him see the things the way I see him, you know, or because we have two different outlooks on what's going on, you know. It just makes it hard to communicate with somebody who's been institutionalized for so long and who's just super angry. So since we left Jacqueline's, my kids have solely depended on me to take care of them. There's not like anyone else. There's not, because their dad was in prison, recently got out like within the last 6 months. And I think that was the first time since they were born that I've had the opportunity to take care of them like that. You know what I mean? Because there's always been like a CPS case or my aunt or some backup plan, but there is no backup plan now. It's just, it's me. Now it's Jared, but it was me when I was, you know, just having not anywhere to live with him. Like, I had to provide that. So I think, and I don't want to say the reason is my kids, you know, for keeping me clean, but I've just developed such like a strong bond with him because I've missed so much time that I couldn't imagine. I'm not going to never say never, because I know that that could happen. I could relapse tomorrow or today. You know, it's a second away from happening, but I don't know. I try not to future trip about things. That's not to say I don't get stressed out, because I do. I don't know. I think working here has given me a sense of like, a sense of confidence that I lost a long time ago. It's empowered me to, like, I want to come to work, you know what I mean? My kids have been here, they think it's such a rad place, you know? They've met Sarah, they've been a part of this place, you know, even if it's just coming for a couple hours. No, yeah, I think it's awesome. I've never ever been working, or I've never worked anywhere where those things are available, you know, or even like brought to the table. Like, and some people might be like, oh, another class or whatever, but I don't look at it like that. I think that I can get something from all these classes, and I think ultimately, like, I'm where I'm supposed to be. I've definitely gained a lot by working here. I haven't worked here for very long, but I've never worked at a place like this before.